Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. While I'm here across the pond, let's talk about another story. Let's take a look at this one. United States will eat up 25% of Britain's defense budget, warns union boss. Because they have unions in the UK. One of the union's biggest labor unions has warned a huge chunk of the UK defense budget will soon go straight to the United States. As much as a quarter of Britain's military funds will be used to support United States jobs in America by 2020. Well, that's redundant. Sorry. The revelation came as Unite the Union, one of British largest trade unions, attended Tuesday's Defense Select Committee hearing to discuss the restructuring of defense giant BAE Systems and the jobs of 1,900 UK workers. Unite has resisted planned redundancies across the sector. Unite Assistant General Secretary Steve Turner spoke before the hearing to express the union's dismay. They were dismayed by this. By 2020, nearly 25% in every pound of defense spending will go to supporting jobs in United States factories rather than here in the UK. It is self-defeating, he said. Not only does it undermine UK's sovereign defense capability, it also undermines the government's desire to have a joined-up industrial strategy. Now, and just to get across the Tories' perspective of this, let me guess. It's going to more money to corporations. I don't know what they're going to say, but I do know what they're going to say. Everybody knows what they're going to say. Writing to The Guardian, the senior Tory politician said the UK is barely achieving, quote-unquote, NATO targets of spending 2% on GDP on defense. We now spend 6 times on welfare, 2.5 times on education, and nearly 4 times on health. What we spend on defense, he said. Setting ourselves a spending target of 3% of GDP for defense would not by itself guarantee our security, but without such an increase, there is no prospect of recruiting personnel and buying equipment on a scale sufficient to avoid the hollowing out of our armed forces. Look, we spend more in this country on defense than something like, I think, 9 other nations, or as much as 9 other nations combined. We are willing to gut education. We are willing to gut healthcare. We are willing to gut roads and infrastructure to continue to put money in defense in order to murder other people abroad. That's us. That's the United States. I would say the left in Britain needs to hold the line in making sure that that is not what happens to Britain. You guys, you are creating your own monsters. You're creating your own monsters. And in creating your own monsters, you're turning around saying, we have a lot of monsters. We need more money for guns and bombs and bullets. We're creating our monsters, but we also need to kill these monsters that we're creating. And now you're dumping money into the defense industry. And hey, the special relationship partner has military equipment. You can buy our military equipment. We will sell you that military equipment for a pretty decent price because we have a special relationship. You are insane if you're going to spend 20% of your military budget in the United States. I'm sorry, you're insane. You're insane. And I strongly suspect that part of the reason why Britain pulled out in the sense of Brexit was because they were sick of this idea of supporting things overseas as opposed to dealing with shit in your own country. It's one thing if you guys do trade deals and these trade arrangements and these things work out as being fair for all parties involved. Ultimately, what you're saying is using British treasure in order to put in the pockets of a bunch of plutocrats in the United States. Mind you, with equipment that murders and kills and maims. Yeah, the labor unions, the left, needs to hold the line. It is a fascinating thing to watch when Britain actually has a labor union, and that labor union actually has a partner in government in the sense of Jeremy Corbyn. A beautiful thing to watch. Whether they are successful or not in holding the line on this, who knows? But I do say there is a massive difference between Britain and the United States on this. We don't have labor unions or labor bosses in the news in any capacity. I have no idea who the labor bosses and the labor unions are. In the sense of like Eugene Debs back in the, 40s or 30s or something to that effect. That doesn't happen like talking about. That doesn't happen. So the idea that that edifice is still there, good on you, Britain. The idea that you have somebody in that office who's actually receptive to what that union has to say, good on you, Britain. Don't go down a path. Don't go down a path. And again, I still make the strong point, and I'll leave it at this. You're creating your own monsters. You're creating your own monsters. Every bomb that you drop, every innocent civilian that you kill is a multiple number of terrorists that you create. That person, when you kill somebody's kid, that mom or that dad who joins up in order to fight you back, you may call them a religious extremist, you may call them a terrorist. I would imagine they call themselves a freedom fighter. And they have, you can almost call it this kind of moral justification in the behavior that they take in regards to trying to repudiate you for what you've done. This creates a world of shit and piss. Dropping bombs and murdering people and thinking that that is somehow pacifying the population is insanity. That's insanity. You're creating a cyclical environment where you feel like you need to spend all of this money on military. Your military, the money that you spend is not your security and it's not your safety. And what you're going to find is you're going to continuously be being attacked. You're never going to be able to stop each and every person who has designs on killing you. And I'm sorry, you're creating a multitude of terrorists in the behaviors that you take. For example, let's take Libya for the moment. The UK, France, and the United States come up with this plan to attack and destroy Libya because they had eyes on the oil reserves. France, up to 30% of the oil they wanted to extract from Libya, let alone the gold reserves that Gaddafi had in his vault. You believe that you need to spend more money on defense now, but you understand that you doing that in Libya adversely affects your security. Do you understand that? Do you understand that partnering up with the United States in order to go into Iraq and kill 1 million Iraqis adversely affects your security? These people who are doing these things are not doing these things purely just because they quote-unquote hate your freedoms, as one idiot said. They're doing it because from their perspective, you're invading their particular area of the world. You leave them to their devices. Leave them to their devices. But that is not what you're doing. As I said, you're creating monsters. And you believe that your security from the monsters that you're creating is to somehow buy more bombs, more guns, and more bullets. As if those bombs, guns, and bullets are somehow going to keep the monsters away that you yourself are continuously creating. I will leave it at that. Your security on this is not the money that you put into weapons. Your security on this is A, leaving people the fuck alone. Stop partnering up with the United States for every batshit crazy thing that the United States wants to do. And attend to your affairs. Your country has decided to leave the European Union. Certainly there are other things that you need to attend to than dumping a huge amount of money into the military that you're not necessarily going to use or don't need to be using in the capacity that you're using it. So I will leave it at that. Yes, I'm intruding in British politics at this point. But special relationship is fucking amazing. The things that you guys justify with this idea of a special relationship, you guys have become the lapdog of the United States. At some point you need to stop. At some point you need to right the ship in regards to what does it mean for Britain to have its own foreign policy separate and distinct from what the United States wants. I will leave it at that. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks guys.